When you know.
I'm being filmed.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, camera. What are you filming this for?
I don't know.
Sick.
I just want to film you. I want to film you and me in the same place.
You're in the same place right now.
We're at AmmoCon.
We're at
AmmoCon 3, right?
AmmoCon 3 and Knuckles.
Yes, because I'm Knuckles.
No, you're just AmmoCon.
Yeah, well,
Who knows where Knuckles is?
I started out as Knuckles, and now I'm AmmoCon.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's like how Sonic 3 and Knuckles is the introduction of Knuckles into like the Sonic team.
Yes.
It's AmmoCon 3 and Knuckles is the introduction of Lily Osaka into the team.
Yes.
Yes.
You look handsome.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Kiss. You know what's really good? Vegetables. You should be eating more of them. I got some broccoli in there. I got some green beans. I got some spinach. And honestly, I should have way more. Really good. Really good. They're energizing and fun, and your parents should have told you to eat more of them. But I'm currently sick with the coronavirus. So they're not quite as energizing for me as they would normally be because everything is tiring and blah. But I'll get over it. I got the vaccine like months and months ago. Like I got my first shot in March. Um, so I'm sure this would be way worse without that. It's funny because like the other day, like I didn't know what was going on. I was all panting and feeling dizzy and like I was gonna fall down. And I've been going in and out of these periods where it's felt like I've been exerting a lot of physical energy in order to breathe. Although right now I feel pretty normal, which I think means I'm recovering because I got sick like 2 weeks ago now. Um, but I still have the congestion and the sore throat, and the general tiredness and fatigue. So we'll see where it takes me. When I was in the thick of it, like when the symptoms were at their worst, I was getting heart palpitations all the time, which wasn't fun. But it's kind of like anything, like you just kind of wait for it to end. Like in the moment when you're experiencing it, feels like this short-term cumbrance on your life is the end of the world. This is all that there is and all there ever will be because that's what you're experiencing in the moment. But like last night, for example, I didn't know what the hell was happening to me. I was just standing in the shower until I actually had to sit down because I got so tired I had to sit. And it felt like inside of my stomach, there was this like extreme rock, like this rock that was like pushing up against my stomach from the inside and then was reverberating this pain throughout the rest of my body while I was like desperately like trying to breathe. And I didn't feel particularly anxious or scared because I know that whatever illness I have, like, as long as I have this or whatever strain of this illness I have, um, as long as I'm inoculated, I'll probably be fine. Like people don't really die from this thing if they're inoculated for the most part. So I wasn't worried about it. It's not like I was having a panic attack or something, but for some reason I was just inoperable, due to the things happening in my body. And I end up getting to the bed and I lay down and I feel so like exhausted, like I've been running and running all day, even though I'd been spending the day resting. Um, and then, I wake up this morning and my heart is just beating out of my chest. So weird physical stuff going on. Like, I don't know how I can go from that last night to feeling mostly okay right now. But it just goes to show that, whatever you're experiencing is very temporary. Like, back in August, I had this acid trip with the goal of confronting my fear of intense experiences. Um, I generally don't like drugs. Like, I haven't since like last year. Like last year, I quit using everything, and I mean everything, in the middle of December. And I basically kept to that throughout the entirety of this year. I think I smoked weed like less than 5 times. Um, and I think I took like the benzo that was around like 2 or 3 times, either to like relax in a social situation or like to sleep. Um, Beyond that, what was there? I drank twice on vacation in August, and then once in September, and that was it out of this entire year, you know? And it wasn't like extreme drinking either in August, at least. Um, so I've generally been pretty all right on that front, especially if you consider how much I was using back in 2020. Dear God, like I had just stopped alcohol completely, um, in December, in the middle of December of 2020, and that was after using extreme, copious amounts of alcohol every day for over a year. Um, and so when I stopped, I felt my hands shaking all the time. I felt heart palpitations, sweating. I would shake. It wasn't fun. It really, really was not fun. Um, but I just kind of rode out the wave of alcohol withdrawal. Thankfully, it wasn't worse, or else, I might have died or something without some kind of medical intervention. Although I did take beta blockers, to lower my heart rate, in the midst of alcohol withdrawal, which is the one of the treatments for alcohol withdrawal. So I guess I did have some treatment because I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through that without beta blockers, because my heart rate was and like blood pressure were so like extreme that like it was scary. But also really bad anxiety at the time. Typical mood symptoms related to that. But it's interesting because, like, whenever people have offered me alcohol now, for the most part, I've refused. Like, I just smell the stuff and I'm like, no, no, I don't want this. This is poison. And, like, all of the last times I tried, I didn't really like it. It just kind of felt like my body was being poisoned, like my mind was being poisoned, and that there was no point to it, you know. Um, when I think about like pretty much all drugs at this point, even psychedelics, which are, generally safe and not addictive, I'm not really interested in it. Like when I had that acid trip back in August, it was an extremely like moving and powerful experience, but by the end of it, I was just like, I don't want to do any drugs. I like it was such an intense thing that um, it made me reflect on everything I've done, and I was like, why have I done any of this? And that was a positive experience. You have a positive experience with like an opioid or something, and then you go, when can I do this again? Or a lot of people at least. Um, you know, by the end of that, I just felt very, very at peace. And I feel like it reinforced the perspective that I had a month or two after I quit back in December, that I'm not really interested in this stuff anymore. I'm not interested in having these experiences. I feel like I got everything I could out of them. And I have to preserve my brain and my body for my future. If you're drinking all the time or using uppers or something, that's going to damage your ability to focus. That's going to damage your impulse control abilities. That's going to damage you in the language department. I don't want a future like that. I don't want a life like that. I've seen so many of these people, um, that I've grown up around who have just destroyed their brain through drugs, like my own father. Um, it's not good. It's just not good. Um, and so I feel like my interest in the subject is much more through a conceptual lens at this point. I like doing research into studies regarding the subject, or the history, the culture. I've always spent way more time reading about drugs than consuming them, which I feel like is indicative of the mindset that I went into a lot of these experiences with, because it had more to do with curiosity than like pleasure. I mean, of course, that was a goal, and a goal that I defended pretty rigorously to people who were more scientifically minded than I. But it was, it played a pretty big role. Um, so at this point, I'm much more interested in like what I can learn about the subject, through other people's experience, and the scientific research done on it. You know, I'd rather administer this stuff to someone else than take it myself, because I don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like feeling bad the next day, or even just having my state of mind altered at this point. Like, I think my state of mind is altered enough throughout the day. Like, every single day for me is either a roller coaster of emotion, or I don't know what mood swing I'm going to have next. And each mood swing is like encompassing my physical form with intensity. Or I'm going through a bout of extreme dissociation where I feel like I have no emotions and can't feel anything or enjoy anything. And those are the periods where you really don't want to be using, because then they become the solution to that issue. And as we established at the beginning of this video, um, short-term feelings always have an end to them. They just feel like they don't when you're experiencing them. And so you have to think in the long term. That's why I gave up drugs, because you have to think in the long term. And a short-term solution is not going to fix a long-term problem. Now, it is true that things like psychedelics have been shown to be extremely effective as therapeutic agents, administered by professionals, and in subjective experiences as well. It just probably should be administered by a professional. But and those are non-addictive. But I'm not interested in those either, Like, I would rather work out my long-term issues through therapy, through introspection, through actively making steps in my life, than through using what's essentially like a crutch. And I'm not trying to argue against medicine. Like, if people need SSRIs, for example, to get them to a point in therapy where they're not unstable, they're not going to kill themselves, just as like a surviving line, that they can hold that line, until they get to a point in therapy where they're stable enough to get off of them. Then that's great. Some people need even something as dangerous as benzodiazepines, which I personally consider to be the most dangerous and addictive class of drugs there is. because the people who are using them, who like them, tend to like them because they have some deeply rooted anxiety issues. They're not really euphoric otherwise, unless you like are just super into novelty and you take a huge dose to like go bar tarded or whatever, and then you do that like once or twice and you've gotten the novelty out of it. Very few people are that curious, but like, you know what I mean. Like the people who like that shit, they like it because they have some underlying issues. I mean, it's generally the same with depressants. Like the kind of people who get really into them are because they have a lot of problems up there in their brain, you know? Um, and those are drugs that will kill you, you know, if you are in withdrawal, or give you seizures and stuff. You know, alcohol can do that too, but I was lucky not to get to the point with alcohol where I was having seizures. But like, you know, I could have been there, and that's not good, you know. So while those drugs are extremely dangerous, and I wouldn't really recommend anyone use them, it is true that there are people in like a, you know, the people who are being treated clinically, who in the short term can take those for social anxiety, go into a social situation, and then learn, oh, it's not as bad as it was in my head. And then that can have like a long-term effect on how they see the world. And so in the short term, that does help them. But when administered by a professional, you know, if it is medically necessary for them, you know. So like, I'm not arguing against the use that these things have in people's lives per se. You know, even methamphetamine is a prescription medication. It's called Digoxin. You know, for people whose ADHD is bad enough, that might work for them. But recreationally, especially in the way that it's consumed, the smoked route of administration, there is a reinforcing, it reinforces addictive behavior, because that route of administration has such a fast onset that the effects kick in very intensely and much faster. And then, you know, in that hyper stimulated state, you want to, you know, use it again and use it again. And that's not good. It's also probably more neurotoxic. I think oral doses that are of a therapeutic dosage are not neurotoxic, but that's based on the wacky brain imaging data we have. You know, like the problem with any neuroimaging data is that our technology is only so good. There's a lot of stuff that we literally just can't see. So, you know, are you going to take a chance on some of this stuff? Like, seriously, like, are you going to risk your future potentially, on information that we don't fully understand yet, that we don't even have the technology to fully understand? Well, that's always the question that's left up to the individual. I can't answer that for you, but what I can answer, as far as questions go for myself, that I don't want any part of that. You know, I'm happy learning things. You know, the scariest thing of all time to me is being unable to learn things. To like, if I can't read for several hours each day, I'm done. You know, I'm just killed, because with the type of mind I have, like I have to be learning new things all the time. And so if I'm not, then I just do not feel okay. You know, if I'm not creating things regularly, I just don't feel okay. Instead of videos, I've been doing a lot of poetry. But you know, basically the message here is don't do drugs. Please be careful with your body. You know, I wish I've said that more on this channel in videos where I've talked about experiences of mine, because it's an extremely important thing for, you know, people who are probably younger than me watching some of these videos to know. You got your whole life ahead of you, you know. That's the thing I've been reminding myself of because I'm 19 years old. You know, I'm going to be 20 in April next year, and my life is just starting, you know. I'm just getting into the motion of you know, moving out with my boyfriend, and if I made worse decisions with my body and with my brain, who knows what could be happening right now? Who knows what kind of person I would be? And I think that's an important thing to look at. Got interrupted there. So this video was originally going to be about not doing things based on your short-term feelings, and I guess that's what I talked about, because the topic of using is heavily related to that, in the sense that, you know, it's a short-term solution to often long-term problems. Ultimately, I'm still an advocate of legalization because I'm an advocate of personal freedom and bodily autonomy, and I recognize that ultimately all of these substances are essentially neutral. They can be used for positive or negative ends. It's just that by nature of the people who are drawn to them, and the effects that these drugs have on neurological processes, they will more often than not serve negative ends, you know, have a negative effect. I think methamphetamine is one of the best examples of this because it is so neurotoxic, especially in the way that it's consumed, that it will damage the parts of your brain that are associated with impulse control. And as your ability to control your impulses wanes, it will reinforce the cycle of addiction because it becomes harder and harder to control your addiction. You don't want that. I mean, maybe some of you do, and you know, you have the right to destroy yourself, but not me, you know. And so, short-term emotions, feeling sad, depressed, even if you've been that way for years and years, you never know what's coming in the next 5, and you know, you should always be striving to get to those next 5 years, not just in one piece, but hopefully better than you were in the last however many it was. You know, it's why I like New Year's so much, because New Year's as a holiday is all about self-improvement. You make a resolution on how you want to be better in the new year going forward. And I've tried my best to treat every new day like a miniature New Year's. If I messed up a lot the day before, today is an opportunity to do better than I did yesterday. And that's extremely hard to keep up with, but just the fact that you're trying is something admirable. And the only thing you can do is keep trying. You know, keep applying new methods if the ones you're trying aren't working, and try each day to garner more and more discipline. That's all you can do. You know, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And ultimately, like, I'm not going to kill myself, because if I did, it would be extremely painful and difficult to undergo. Like, most suicide attempts aren't successful, if I recall correctly. And like, every method is just kind of bad. So if I'm stuck being alive, I should at least try a bit each day to be happier than I was the day before. You fall off, of course. You can fall off pretty hard, but as long as you can pick yourself back up on the way to improvement. There's the potential there to go up higher than you ever did before. And part of how to do that is to recognize these short-term feelings of, for example, depression, and not making such long-term decisions based on the short-term feelings, not offing yourself, for example. It's all about that positivity. I was going to talk about something else. I forgot what it was. A friend of mine with whom I've been hanging out with as of late has been comparing me to a soldier. Like when we go out, one day recently when we went out on the street, a guy was just jogging on the sidewalk, and he came close to me, and I got really close to my friend. I started appearing as if I was preparing something. I was very focused on what was happening. I wasn't just going to jump up on him, because it was in the middle of public, but I was very vigilant of the situation. And in my mind, I was just hearing, I'm going to get mugged, it felt as if my body was saying that. And this is basically every time I go out. Like, whenever I stay in a car, and someone walks by my car, either to get into theirs or to go somewhere else, I always think that person is walking by my car to knock on the window and to break in, to steal things. I can't stand outside of a store without thinking everyone outside that store is there to attack me. I was in a train station in Warsaw, and I had to go to one of those pay bathrooms, the kind where they make you give you your they make you give them your credit card or whatever to pay 75 cents to use the toilet. And I didn't know that because the signs were in Polish, so I couldn't read them. And I was just walking through, and this old woman, runs up behind me and is screaming in Polish. I have no idea what she's saying, of course. And then she grabs me and pulls me, and I come around like I'm about to punch her in the face, like I almost did. I came very close, because I thought I was being attacked, but I look around and it's just this small old lady behind me. But I came that close from punching an old woman employee of this, I'm assuming, government train station in the middle of a foreign country. Insane, right? But it's because I just assumed that she could have had a knife or something. I assume that I'm always being attacked or about to be attacked by somebody. I can't even hang out with my friends without thinking about this. I was at this internet friend gathering, AnloCon. I've been to that gathering twice. But the last time I was there, I kept having to leave the room and go to a room alone because I would think that every small expression someone made on their face, or any this tiniest negative inkling in their voice meant that they were directly angry at me and had a problem with me, and that I could be yelled at or I could be attacked somehow. Just someone coming close to me too fast brought tension in my body because I thought something was going to happen to me. And it's like this, everywhere I go, all the time. It doesn't matter how nice of people I'm with. These are nice autists, who like anime and stuff, and I'm over there, clenching my fist in tension of what's about to happen. So this is a problem. This is a pretty big problem. Don't want to be punching old ladies in foreign countries. I started talking to her in English. I kept saying things. Oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry. What's going on? And she just points to the sign, and I'm like, I can't read that. She comes over and says, like, she points at the little card thing, and so I run back to my friend who has my bag, and then I use my card. But, like, come on, you know? Like, uh, brain, brain. And then when I walked in the bathroom, I thought, like, everyone in there was gonna hurt me somehow. Um, Also, I almost called that woman an ethnic slur. I almost called her a Polak. I don't even know if she would have known what that meant. I just really wanted to. Like, I was holding back super hard to not just call her a Polak. Um, you know. But, like, you know, Slavic people being subhuman aside, I think, um, I have some serious trauma going on. Um, and it makes interacting with people difficult. And it makes me think about how similar BPD and PTSD are. Because part of PTSD is that you're hyper vigilant. You're hyper aware of your surroundings, right? In preparation for danger occurring. You see your traumas in your everyday life constantly in expectation for them to occur again. And BPD works in a very similar way because it is a result of childhood trauma. And one of the main features of how people with BPD think is overinterpretation, right? People with BPD tend to heavily overinterpret in their interactions with others, which can look superficially similar to autism because autistic people tend to underinterpret, leading to a similar deficit in communication and social functioning, but for different reasons, which is part of the reason why some people have pegged me as autistic when I have something else going on, regardless. Um, it like the way I've explained how I interpret um, interactions with other people is through this radio wave metaphor, which I've talked about for like a long time on this channel before I even had the diagnosis. But apparently it's how borderline personality disorder is basically explained. So imagine people's perception of communication is received. They receive communication through a radio, and the sensitivity on that radio can be turned down low, high, or in the middle. Everyone's kind of in the middle, right? Or they're on normal settings. With me, my sensitivity is turned up so high that any communication that's sent to my radio is going to come in much, much louder and more intense than was intended by the person sending it. And so I'm going to get the wrong interpretation out of whatever is sent to me. And after I came to this realization, I started being a lot more peaceful with other people because I didn't see literally every conversation I had as a direct attack on me, But it's still a quite big lingering problem I have. This is one of the reasons why I have so much trouble keeping friends. I've basically found the nicest possible people I can know, and I've been able to keep those friends for the most part, but I haven't really been able to keep friends until like the year 2020, and it's only because I've accrued the nicest, most understanding people ever. In the past, I used to just destroy my friendships with others left and right. Like, I would violently end a friendship, then come back and like beg the person to be friends again because I didn't know why I did it. Like, um, this has been a constant issue with my mood swings and my tendency to feel very hurt by the ways that other people talk because I don't know why I react the way I do in the moment. And then after I've simmered down and I feel calmer, I'm like, oh my fucking God, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Um, and then the friend is gone. And after enough times of forgiving me, they would just always be gone. And so I would just cycle through friends while simultaneously isolating myself. Um, and I didn't really know how to have friends because my sensitivities were so high that like I just kind of couldn't stand anybody. Um, and oh geez, I'm getting I'm getting a little emotional thinking about this. I have to pace myself. Um, but like I related to the aspect of autism, um, or a way that autistic people describe themselves a lot, where they say, "Oh, it's like you're born on the wrong planet. Everyone has a rule book that you don't have, um, and and you fail socially because you don't have those rules." I've always been a rulesy kind of person. I'll go, "This is what you're supposed to do," in a social situation and stuff. And I can pick up on a lot of intuitive aspects of communication, but my internal world is so negatively biased that a lot of the signals just end up being sent to me wrong, making it to where everyone else seemingly can communicate on a level I just can't, because I'm not seeing the same things as them. There's rules I don't know. The world wasn't designed for me. And so I go every day constantly being hurt by the little things that people say. Because in my own mind, those little things, if I heard them as a child, would have been a sign that abuse is about to happen, that I'm going to be hurt in some way. This hypersensitivity just arises from having parents who would unpredictably abuse you or would abuse you for very small things. Or, as a child, you would have to know when they're about to, you'd have to see the smallest sign that they're about to. And so you would become hypersensitive to any little thing because it could be an attack, or the sign that one is about to start, and then you'd have to prepare, you'd have to do something. See this manifesting in myself today. It's like whenever I go outside, or I'm around people, I'm just constantly feeling like I'm doing something wrong, or like they don't like me, or like I'm hated, or everyone's angry at me, or I'm anything I say is from the slightest reaction I could get, that doesn't even mean anything from their perspective, is now a sign that I'm going to be hurt. And I end up playing those moments where I felt hurt in my head over and over and over again. And I'll just be, watching a movie or doing some task throughout my day, and those memories will hit me, and it feels like they hit me physically like a truck. And there the images are playing in my mind again, making me upset, and I can't do anything. Now, I try my best to bear through it and to do what I'm doing, to have distractions and stuff. But the memories are there all the time. I'll make a little noise or I'll shake or something as soon as they come in. And I end up being dictated emotionally by, led around emotionally by my perceptions of these interactions I've had that are like totally false, not even accurate to what reality is like. But in my negatively biased internal world, that's exactly how it went down. God forbid someone's actually mad at me, because then, all hell breaks loose. I'm just destroyed. And that's what it's like for me all day. That's not even including the fact that like my emotional plane is like constantly like this. I could be feeling one, I could be on going up on the roller coaster, then going down to the side, around in a loop, going backwards, forwards, side to side. The roller coaster doesn't stop for the most part, unless I'm dissociating and feel like I don't have feelings. But maybe that's just another turn around the corner. So it's hard because I'm wrought with a constant sense of emptiness and pain. Even now, when I'm much more emotionally healthy than I used to be, and then I look back at like stuff I've said on live streams of mine where I'm literally yelling at people in my chats just because they're making a little joke and I can't handle it. How do you explain that to someone? I mean, I doubt anyone watching these videos. I don't know.
There is no evidence that a child and an adult cannot have consensual sexual relations. Most of where the idea that a child cannot consent comes from is from socially constructed ideas of what is okay sexually. Given that children who are engaging in these relations with an adult are told by the entirety of society, the professional, the business and medical class, the elite, that they cannot do these things by their own volition, that they are traumatized, that they are destroyed by what these people are doing with them, they begin to believe it. And it creates trauma because society tells them that they're supposed to be traumatized. If we lived in a world where these relations were accepted, I think you wouldn't have the same reaction. Like, a lot of the kids who go through these experiences literally don't know why it's bad after it happens. Like, you can find interviews of these people or studies on the topic. It's not until these kids are told by other people that what happened is bad, that they should feel bad for it, that trauma gets created.
I don't think you can dismiss trauma just by saying that children are not aware that they are traumatized in the moment. Because like trauma often is something very subtle that creeps up over a long time. And I also think that children can't consent because they're not even have developed a sexuality yet, which happens during puberty, you know, and after puberty you're like kind of starting to become an adult physically, and I mean your brain develops at the same time. So when children are not fully aware of what their sexuality is and what that means to like engage sexually with a partner, I don't think they are able to have consent.
I mean, did you ever play with another kid's dick when you were growing up?
No, not really, not that I can remember.
I did.
So are you proud of that or what? And even if that happened, that you can't compare that to an adult having sex with a child, because an adult clearly is aware of what their sexuality is and what it means to, you know, have a sexual engagement, and the child is not.
Sexuality can be expressed from many different ways. Like, you don't necessarily have to have a sex drive to have a sexual relation. Like, the definition of like what sex is, I don't think should be constrained by like these socially constructed ideas of what, like, okay, who gets to decide that?
I mean, a sex drive is not socially constructed.
Everything is socially constructed.
No, not really, because when a child, it doesn't matter of any gender or sex, hits puberty, they start getting their sexual hormones more, like they get produced more, and then a sex drive slowly gets created. That starts with like 13-year-old boys being really confused and just putting their penis into every hole they can find in their household. But does that mean they have a fully grown sexuality yet? No, not really. They're still in the beginning stages of figuring that out.
In my opinion, this is all made up.
I mean, do you want to tell me that testosterone and estrogen is made up?
Yes.
So you're just denying science?
No, I'm recognizing that empirical facts, like what we have in science, are ultimately coming from a subjective interpretation of reality. That all things we attempt to deduce from the information that we can find through these empirical methods will ultimately be filtered through and perceived by subjective lenses.
I mean, that is true, and scientific knowledge can always be updated or renewed if you discover something new, but that doesn't mean just because it's always subjective to some degree, you can dismiss all science as just being made up.
Renewed, like how trauma doesn't exist?
What does that have to do with trauma?
Well, the reason why people say that children can't consent is because they're traumatized. And I think
No,
that's made up.
that's not the cause. That's just,
So you think they're not smart enough to make their own decision? Are you ageist?
I mean, yes, children are not smart as adults because their brain hasn't developed to the same degree. And secondly, they're not, like I said, they're not aware of, like, they don't have a sexuality yet, so they don't know what it means to engage sexually with someone.
I think you're a faggot.
Frito. Frito.
I think he's a bit attacky right now.
I see. Frito.
Frito! He's zooming in and out.
Yes.
Oh, he's such a cutie pie.
Yes. He looks like he has a little suit, like a tuxedo.
Yeah, I know. And he's wearing little white gloves. Is this an Anima Kasuga video?
I don't know, maybe. Frito.
Oh no.
Frito. This is a no thank you vlog now. The way it zoomed in on your face like that. So, Wiming, I've been thinking a lot lately about the death of cyberpunk.
Oh no. It's no thank you.
No, thank you. Finally pink pilled.
You know, I think the death of cyberpunk will ultimately come from the fact that all of the ThinkPads are running out.
No.
I think all the ThinkPads
Mm-hmm.
are gonna be gone soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we better buy them all now.
Yes.
What's Frito doing? He's meowing. He wants food. He wants his veggies.
He eats veggies? I thought he
No.
ate like
He eats meat.
yeah, I was about to say he's a cat.
Frito! Frito! It's very funny. Dogs can actually live vegan, but cats need meat to survive.
It's because they're like little tigers in your house,
I
and
know,
dogs
but I mean,
are like
dogs are like little wolves.
little niggers that you feed.
No, you can't say that. Just say wigger.
What's Gucci, my wigger?
Yeah, that's the real slang you don't know about.
Are you gonna tell the story of that?
Okay, so basically, one time at a train station, it was like just this, I don't know, kind of like 50-something-year-old fella walking by, and he just wore like clothes that were kind of like too young for him, like ripped, like skinny jeans, like some trendy sneakers, and a T-shirt which just had the phrase "What's Gucci" on it, and he felt very confident in that.
It said "What's Gucci, my
No,
wigger."
it just said "What's Gucci."
Wait, really?
I think so.
No, I'm pretty sure it said both.
Okay, then it said "What's Gucci, my wigger."
Because when both of us saw that, we were like pointing it out, or you pointed it out to me, and you like read it out to me, and then like I couldn't stop laughing about it.
Mm-hmm. Women, people, I tell you, women. Oh,
Yeah.
Frito's back.
Frito.
He's really annoyed by us. Just wants to look around and beg for food.
This is like the meme they used in the recent Swag Chan episode, where it's like, if I had all the hot dogs,
Yeah, and then it's like Frito
the whole
with all the
world.
balconies.
Yeah. Oh my god. What an aesthetic cat. I can make an image macro meme out of this.
Yeah, like a ton of them.
Yeah.
Frito's a very photogene cat, as you say.
Yeah, photogenic.
I see.
Photogenic.
Get it. You don't have to repeat the joke.
Hey, this is my fitness vlog. It's me, Osaka from Texas. I mean, Ozumanga. Okay, cut. Hey, Wiming, what are your thoughts on Among Us, the famous video game known from YouTube Let's Play Markiplier, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, Among Us? What's your opinion on Among Us, Wiming?
Kind of sus, to be honest.
Damn, that shit. He said that shit.